All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something that is frankly at the very core of what you do, data protection. But listen, I want you to forget about tech jargon and compliance checklists for a minute. This isn't about that. This is about people. It's about honoring the incredible trust that individuals place in your hands every single day.
And just so you know where this is all coming from, this explainer is from Chapter 7 of the tutorial, Generative AI for Community Organizations from Virtualization Options LLC.
And this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The trust that your community, your clients, your donors, everyone gives you, that's not just a nice to have. It's everything. It's the currency you run on. And it is so, so fragile. Once you break it, it's almost impossible to piece back together.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about that foundation of trust. Then, we'll get specific. What exactly is PII? After that, we'll look at your duty to protect, some common, frankly scary vulnerabilities, and we'll wrap up by talking about how to build a real culture of privacy.
So let's start with that big idea, the foundation of trust. This is really about honoring the dignity of every person you serve. Look, here's the big takeaway for this section. We have to shift our mindset. Data protection isn't some IT headache or a box you have to check on a form. No, it's a core ethical responsibility. It's right up there with the actual services you provide, whether that's a hot meal, counseling, or a safe place to sleep. It is part of your mission, period. Okay, so if we agree it's part of the mission, what are we actually talking about protecting? What is this information we're supposed to be guarding? Well, that brings us to our next topic. What is PII?
PII. It stands for Personally Identifiable Information. And the definition seems pretty straightforward. Any information that can be used to figure out who someone is. But the kicker is that last part, when combined with other information. That's where it gets tricky. A name, sure, that's obvious. But a couple of details that seem totally harmless on their own, you put them together and suddenly you've got a direct line to a specific individual.
And when you start to look at the categories, you see just how much this covers. I mean, you've got the super obvious stuff, right? Names, social security numbers, but it's also contact info, demographic details, even financial information, like who donated what. And for so many of you, it's the really, really sensitive stuff, like health information or those incredibly detailed case notes. That's the kind of information that has to be locked down tight.
Which leads us perfectly into our next section, your duty to protect. Because this isn't just a nice to do, it is an absolute obligation you carry. And it's got two sides to it, the legal side and the ethical side.
And this is a great way to think about it. You've got your legal requirements. This is the stuff you must do. Think HIPAA. This is the baseline, the absolute minimum to stay out of trouble. But then you have your ethical obligations. This is what you should do, because it's the right thing to do for the people you serve. Things like the principle of least privilege, which just means you only access or share the bare minimum information needed to do your job. And let's be honest, your ethics should almost always be holding you to a higher standard than the law.
All right, so we know the why and we know the what. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty how, as in, how does this stuff go wrong? Let's talk about the most common privacy vulnerabilities. Basically, the little cracks that can appear in your foundation of trust.
Now, as I go through this list, I want you to be really honest with yourself. Does any of this sound a little too familiar? Unsecured email. I mean, sending sensitive PII that way is literally like writing it on a postcard and dropping it in the mail. Anybody can see it. Or what about weak passwords? Files left out on a desk? Even just talking about a client situation in the hallway where someone could overhear. These are the small, everyday things that seem harmless, but they are exactly how trust gets broken.
Okay, enough of the scary stuff. Let's pivot and talk about solutions. That brings us to our final and maybe most important section, building a privacy culture. This is all about getting those policies off the paper and into the real world, into your daily actions.
So how do you do it? Well, it absolutely has to start from the top. Leadership has to walk the walk. Then you build on that with clear policies that people can actually understand and regular training so everyone knows what's expected. Of course, you need the right tech in place, but you also have to check your work with regular audits. And please, please have an incident response plan. You hope you never need it, but trust me, having a plan for a crisis is 1,000 times better than trying to make one up in the middle of it. And that's where we'll leave it today, with a simple question for you to take back to your organization, to your team. Take a hard look at how you operate day to day. Is your foundation of trust really, truly built to last? Because when you boil it all down, that's what this is all about. Thanks for joining me.